Hello, this is Dr. Nicholas Pennings. I'd like to welcome you to the Tobacco Cessation Training Program. This is going to be a series of modules where we'll be walking you through a training process for coaching people through a smoking cessation program. We'll be beginning with tobacco statistics. Each of these modules will be relatively short, 5 to 15 minutes, and intended to help you better understand the challenges of tobacco cessation. In 2014, we celebrated the 50th year anniversary of the Surgeon General report, which was a pivotal moment in tobacco cessation, where the Surgeon General clearly identified the link between health, disease, and smoking. In particular, the relationship between lung cancer and smoking. This report came out in 1964 at a time where smoking prevalence was much higher than it is today, and has had a powerful impact on changing the course of smoking in the United States and around the world. Currently, though, still 18% of Americans smoke, and in North Carolina it's higher, 20.9% of North Carolinians are smokers. Now, this is an improvement from 1964 when 43% of the general population smoked. And the power of this impact over the last 50 years has been to improve life expectancy by approximately 3 years and reduced 20 million smoking-related deaths and prevented those from happening since 1964. So if we go back to 1955, we see that the male smoking rate was 50%. Today, the smoking rate is 18% for males, and overall North Carolina smoking rate is 20.9%. Men still are more common to smoke than women, at 21% versus 16% of adult women. The peak age group for smoking is 25 to 44. It declines with time and is actually significantly lower after age 65, though more likely because of shortened life rather than smoking cessation. Education is inversely correlated with smoking rates, that those with lower educations are more likely to smoke, and those with postgraduate degrees are much less likely to smoke. And smoking prevalence is much higher in the LGBT community, with 33% of LGBT individuals smoking. The teen population is a large population for smokers. 9 out of 10 smokers start by the time they're age of 18. This is why the smoking industry and tobacco and related industries target teenagers, identifying those as the major market for new starts. 6.7% of middle school students use tobacco, and 23.3% of high school students use tobacco. In 2011 to 2012, we saw a rapid growth of electronic cigarette use, doubling among middle and high school students, and this trend is clearly continuing to increase. With multiple forms of tobacco available, it's becoming more and more common that tobacco products are interchanged amongst tobacco users. If we look in 2012, among the most common tobacco products, 23% of high school students use some form of tobacco, men more common than women, with cigarettes still remaining the most common form of tobacco, but followed closely by cigars. Smokeless tobacco is regularly being used. Hookahs, pipes, electronic cigarettes, as we mentioned, is becoming increasingly common to use. Snus is a product that is put underneath the lip, and also fairly common. Ketrex, Bitus, and dissolvable tobacco forms are less commonly used. 6.7% of middle school students use some form of tobacco, with again cigarettes being the most common form, and they're following a similar pattern to high school students. Smokers do want to quit. 70% of smokers want to quit, and 81% of smokers have tried at least once. 35% try every year, and relapse is common. So it may take a smoker up to 10 attempts to quit successfully, sometimes even more. In general, only about 7% of smokers who attempt to quit remain smoke-free at the end of 1 year, which is why support and guidance is so important and why we have developed this program. So in summary, 1 in 5 adults in North Carolina smoke, and smoking rates vary by age, gender, education, and sexual orientation. Tobacco use remains high, particularly for teens. 70% of smokers do want to quit, with a relatively low success rate of 7% attempts being smoke-free at 1 year, which underscores the need for the efforts that we're making.